Issue 56. We start out with a few panels where the only reason I have even a vague idea of what's going on is the dialogue boxes, with Knuckles and Sonic complaining about being too close together and their spines jabbing each other from it, which you'd think would kill them since they're so sharp, especially since Sonic uses a spin dash with those same spines. They've been sent into some weird magical dimension by Mammoth Moggle, and after a rock quake, Tails worries if the rock is alive, and Knuckles actually doubts him, calling him stupid. Really? You've been sent to a magical dimension where anything can happen, and you're being skeptical? Also, I hope Sonic calls him out on calling his little brother stupid. Sadly, before he can even think of doing that, Sonic sinks into mud as a mud creature rises out of the ground they were standing on. Knuckles complains that the gravity here sucks and they're all adrift, and Sonic spins around in a failed attempt to move what I guess is the ground creature, only for a miracle to happen as Aether shows up. Since he already helped Knuckles before, I wouldn't say this comes out of nowhere, though it is once again pretty convenient that he actually knew they would be sent to this dimension and figure out which one they were in. Sonic tries out his super peel out in reverse, and the weird gravity of his own gives him just enough reverse momentum to head for Aether as he tells his friends to grab onto him. Aether then vanishes, but his place is some sort of black hole, so I guess it's showing him a portal. Meanwhile, we cut back to Moggle talking like an actual realistic villain would by calling his enemies so-called heroes, while he surrounds Sonic's friends with green light. So what did he do with them? I doubt he killed them, so there goes some credibility points right there, because if he did that, he would have won. And the green light also reminds me of Enerjack brainwashing the Chaotix. So, did he do that? That would have also been helpful to him. He says that he's going to use Knuckles, Sonic, and Tails as the elite strike force of his army because of their unique abilities. So even he recognizes that Tails has a lot of potential, when the comic didn't at the time. But then he immediately says the other heroes are useless, even though Bunny is a powerful cyborg and he knows she has super strength. He even told an illusioned grunt to pretend to be her after all. He sent the other heroes to another dimension, and after some panels wasting comic space where the heroes complain about how Moggle seems unstoppable, Sonic and Knuckles surprise Moggle to attack him, though I doubt it'll be that easy for them to win, even with the element of surprise. Finally, something he didn't predict for once. Of course, he magically stops the two of them, saying that even with Sonic and Knuckles wearing a huge amount of rings in their arm to enhance their power, that's nothing compared to the power of the Chaos Emeralds. However, just as Moggle's about to finally get a clue and try to kill them outright, they seem to bathe in his energy and absorb it just like he did with Dimitri's. Nice bit of karma there, but it's not like they have the Sword of Acorns. The only reason Moggle's able to do that was because he had the Sword of Acorns act as a superconductor. Apparently just being close to the Sword of Acorns is enough for these guys. It turns out that the 50 rings they each collected combined with the energy of the 12 Chaos Emeralds is enough to turn them into Supersonic and Hyper Knuckles. Well, I can only assume the text boxes are saying that because the text of Super and Hyper are so smushed that I can't make out what they're saying. Also, I was confused at first with the number 12, but then I remembered that Moggle had an emerald, so we added that to Dimitri's 11. Moggle complains that somehow he was already aware of their super forms. I guess he read the newspaper about them after their fight of theirs. And then says that their transformation should have been impossible without actual Chaos Emeralds. What do you mean actual? Your emeralds aren't fake, they're close enough to them that I can imagine they transformed from just being around them. After all, if you had to directly touch all 7 emeralds to transform, it'd be impossible to do so unless you had, lie down on top of all of them and roll on the ground. So they must be able to transform at a small distance. As for why the emeralds helped them when Moggle was busy using them already, which reminds me of Perfect Chaos, where Chaos was already clearly using all 7 emeralds, but Sonic was able to turn to Supersonic anyways. I guess the emeralds were just feeling nice that day, knew Moggle's up to no good. Well, never mind, Aether then shows up, and Moggle says that he's responsible for this transformation. What, did he supply 7 emeralds of his own? That should be convenient. However, Aether is able to absorb Moggle's magic too, just like Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, despite not having the Sword of Acorns. Wait, Tails didn't go super? Why not? Maybe there just weren't enough rings for him, but he feels so left out. At this point, I'm thinking Moggle doesn't think he can fight without magic, because he should really just stop using it on people who can absorb it like that. Are those gold braids on Aether's hair rings? That would explain his absorbing it too, I guess. I like how Knuckles actually lampshades Moggle being overly wordy, saying talk, talk, talk. He does monologue way too much. A green light seems to replace Moggle from that attack, but then we see him again with what looks like a green hole in his chest, or portal to a pocket dimension. But more likely it's just a green plating on his chest with a crack in it with a Chaos Emerald in it. So it's hard to tell what it even was. I think it's because of the way the very bottom of it looks, the dark edges. Anyways, he explains that his cane was a mechanical construct that let him safeguard the real Chaos Emerald. He had a fake one? He explains that an accident millennia ago resulted in Emerald shattering and fusing to his chest. That was what granted him his power and immortality in the first place. Oh! That makes much more sense than him merely having an emerald. Wish I knew why that emerald conveniently shattered in the first place, though. Did it see a rerun of a particularly terrifying soap opera? Because of 12 Chaos Emeralds being in one place, an earthquake happens on the floating island as a whole, granting Moggle control of it. As it's finally pointed out, the Tails didn't make it back with them, and I wonder why the hell Super Sonic and Hyper Knuckles can be helpless. Someone that I'm guessing is Tails, under a blue cloak with rings on his arms, flies into him to punch him, and Moggle intrigues me by explaining that he was gifted enough to evade the scope of his enhanced senses. Tails doesn't get hurt by the attack, saying that those voices in his head were telling the truth, and it's really working, just like it does for them. By voices in his head, I guess he means the voices in his head from the Tails miniseries that were telling him all about the backstory of the planet. Oh, good! I thought this was the debut of the terrible-looking super form for him that's pretty infamous, the muscular one. But instead, he's just red-looking. So good, Tails wasn't neglected for super form, and he's allowed to actually fight and be useful for once. Moggle explains that those voices in his head must have been the ancient walkers, and Tails being called the Chosen One by them in the Tails miniseries is finally brought up again. Good, because that was a pretty important thing to drop. As all of the supers try to attack through Moggle's force field, Sonic says Tails was telling the truth. What, so he thought he was lying? Well, okay, he has always wanted to be a big hero. I guess he could have assumed he made the Chosen One thing up, especially since it came out of nowhere. But still, this is the explanation for why Tails was cast away, just like Moggle acknowledges that Destiny has said Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles were chosen ones, but then gives a concrete explanation for why he thinks he can change fate. It's been told since ancient times that the power of a Titan always paled before that of a god. So he's calling himself a god now? He was just a regular Joe Smo who happened to get one too many Chaos Emeralds. And Titans, so I guess the supers are Titans now? He says that unlike Dimitri, he's mastered his chaotic strengths. Unlike? Dimitri created a whole mountain and everything. He's just being arrogant. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Tails pulls out the very same Chaos Siphon that brought energy into Dimitri, making him Enerjack, and uses it to absorb Moggle himself. How the hell did he get that? No, seriously, how? Did he travel back in time before it was destroyed by the same thing that it was used for in the first place? Did Aether do that? Okay, this is a universe where Eggman made a time machine effortlessly, so that's not all hard to believe. It's then explained, while we see the Ancient Walkers actually helping for once, that concentrating all of his power at fighting Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles is what freed the people he dismissed as useless, and they're coming back with a vengeance. This makes sense considering we saw the same thing happen with the Enchantress, too distracted by the Paladin to keep brainwashing Knuckles. Then it's shown that Knuckles' father and grandfather are somehow watching even this, even though I thought this fight was taking place in a weird, wacky, another dimension. Well, we did see the floating island in it, but it still looks so weird. Obviously, when he brought everything in the vicinity to a magical dimension to show off his power, he ended up bringing Locke's cameras with it. Knuckles' father says that with a crisis of this magnitude, when do we make our move? Which is the only thing justifying his and his father's pointless appearances. Moggle explains that chaotic energies can act as a homing beacon, and like powers will seek their brethren. Is this referring to how Chaos Emeralds can attract each other? But he has all of them! And it still hasn't been explained that Aetheri has enough Chaos Emeralds with him to allow 3 different people to turn super. Knuckles reveals that he's going after the emerald from the floating island. Tails comes to save the day, still holding the Chaos Siphon he got somehow, and it's explained by Locke that their super forms fully protected him in that risky situation. Well, duh. Locke's father says that Knuckles is the only Guardian who's ever gone super. Really? Well, they're all stuck on an island with one emerald in it, so it does make sense that Knuckles has gone super because he actually got to leave it. But then Locke says that it still pales in comparison to total mastery of an emerald's energies. What? So being as skilled as you possibly can be at one emerald makes you as powerful as being in a super form from having all 7? Dimitri did say one emerald had infinite power, but I still can't believe that. Otherwise you could go super with just one! That sounds stupid. Also, I can't tell what's going on in these panels because the artists were too lazy to color in the camera footage. And we've seen colored camera footage before, so that's no excuse. And when he says that not even Moggle and Dimitri have achieved total mastery of one emerald, it just makes me wonder how do you even know that crazy fact then? Then Knuckles' father and grandpa say they're going to act now, with me being annoyed from not actually getting to know what they even did immediately from behind their computer screen. Instead, we cut back to an Echidna Palace that's fortunately just damaged instead of in complete ruins, because otherwise it'd be kind of a waste to just have it be destroyed like that. And Remington says to Knuckles that there must have been some unknown person helping them. Sonic says that while everyone's glaringly standing around in a yellow void of I don't know what, that they still don't know what caused that explosion. So it was an explosion, okay, I thought it was a puff of smoke because the art was in monochrome. Sonic and Knuckles naturally get into a chicken or the egg argument from not knowing what saved their lives and stuff. And then Knuckles immediately presents Sally at long last with the Sword of Acorns, with everyone cheering in the background, sharing my exact sentiments. I like how Knuckles actually lampshades how the sword got lost, saying, for the first and hopefully last time. We then cut to Sonic in front of a plane of people leaving the island, actually thanking Knuckles for his help, with Knuckles actually acknowledging that they should have always been on the same side, but were too headstrong to know it. At least it's being lampshaded how both of them were being stupid, with Knuckles being self-deprecating by admitting it, but this reconciliation still feels forced and sudden. It would have been better for them to be friends than waste our time with pointless fighting and suspicion all the time though. I never really enjoyed that. If you're gonna have Sonic hate Knuckles, it should be because he's on the evil side or something. The two of them acknowledge their similarities, how they're both heroes who enjoy a good thrill. Although I'm surprised Knuckles didn't disagree with the whole thrill-seeker thing. He's the more serious and careful foil to Sonic. I do like how the two of them point out that with peace seeming to return, heroes like them might be out of a job. I especially like Sonic's line, "There's no place for us in organized society." It's once again a smart deconstruction of how Sonic does his best as a hero, not as a regular boring person. He then finds a solution to the problem by saying that they need to find some more villains to fight, saying that even though Robotnik's gone, his sub-bosses aren't. Yeah, they aren't. And I guess the Freedom Fighters and Knuckles were too busy with their own thing to deal with sub-bosses on other parts of the world. But Sonic can't be allowed to just up and leave Sally to go fight some sub-bosses on his own, so why is he even bothering to consider this? Knuckles turns him down because he still has stuff to do on his island, but then reveals that the floating island is no longer powered by a single Chaos Emerald and a spare, and the threat of Moggle isn't truly gone. The explosion didn't destroy him, it only exploded him along with the 2 emeralds of the island, leaving Moggle in a comatose state living on, and leaving me wondering how the island hasn't crashed to the ground catastrophically from the lack of emeralds holding it up. Fortunately, Knuckles immediately explains that now it's powered by 1 giant Chaos Emerald, a living one at that. Well, that makes sense since the Master Emerald is talked to in the adventure game, so of course it's living. It's made out of 14 emeralds with Mammoth Moggle's life essence at the very center. 14? Don't you mean 12? Unless Aethera made the 3 super forms happen with only 2 emeralds. Anyways, I hope this means the island finally has the Master Emerald like it should have, because that 1 measly emerald thing was just unnecessary. I found it pretty sweet how Sonic reacted to Tails being the chosen one, putting his arm around him and saying he's proud of him. I kind of object to him being destined to be a hero greater than Sonic and Knuckles, though. I know for a fact that Tails doesn't actually learn to be a powerful wizard like Merlin, even though he's shown the potential, that he gets called out on wasting his powers later on. So with that in mind, how the hell could he possibly be better than Sonic and Knuckles then? It's wasted potential. I only like this concept in the sense that he's a kitsune, a magical 2-tailed fox, so he's more powerful than any of them. But again, if he's not really taking advantage of it, what's the point? And the story ends with it being explained that Sonic and Tails will get to spend some quality time together and go on a big adventure together. About time! This should really happen more often. This story was written by Kent Taylor. It was basically about a fight of epic scale between Supersonic Knuckles and Tails and Mammoth Mongol at his full power. I had a lot of issues with it though. It's never properly explained how the hell Tails got his hands on that Chaos Siphon when it had been destroyed, and it wasn't explained that Aethera could build a new one, so the day got saved by Duke's Ex Machina. Not to mention Knuckles' father and grandpa were able to magically save the day from what I believe is a dimension away from the battle. Their powers sure spread far. Speaking of them, I hated how I couldn't tell what was going on in the camera footage because the panels weren't colored. There was no excuse for that. I always hate it when the art makes it unclear what's going on, when it being a series of still images makes action scenes hard enough to interpret as it is. Like Sonic and his friends standing in a yellow featureless void after Mongol was defeated. What was that about? In general, I was pretty annoyed by the story for some reason. It just rubbed me the wrong way, and I guess the art was part of the problem. I wish it didn't, because the scene's just fine, if a little heavy on the exposition. However, I do really like some things about it, despite the weird them somehow getting super forms for no reason. I like how Mogul's immortality actually makes sense, how Mogul being distracted freed the other heroes and let them pitch in, Tails actually being allowed to fight with super form and everything. You know, I was expecting a completely different looking terrible form, I think Titan Tails. So Turbo Tails was a huge relief, honestly. And I liked the ending, especially how they finally managed to get the island having a Master Emerald. Even if it does have a convoluted origin, because at least it's finally there. This is how it should be. Not just because it's more like the games, but because the island being held up by one measly emerald, when they thought they needed way more emeralds than that beforehand, was just stupid. Next up, Sonic Super Special Issue 4? Huh? But I haven't even read 3, and I skimmed the timeline and could see nothing but special issues coming after that, and some more that are skipped. Is 3 non-canon? Well, I still don't see why I should ignore it. 2 specials in a row then.